This is a test of frequency instruments, bass, drums, distortion.
Of the United States would go into the Rose Garden of the White House and urge demonstrators not to take to the streets tonight. Joe Biden, who gave a webcast a short while ago expressing his grave concern about what of the United States would go into the Rose Garden of the White House and urge demonstrators not to take to the streets tonight. Understandable, though, their anger over the killing of George Floyd is. He didn't do that. You might think that at the end of a week where the United States recorded its 100,000th death as a result of COVID-19, the President of the United States might seek to use his appearance in the Rose Garden to convey his condolences and sympathies to the families of those who have lost their loved ones as a result of coronavirus. He didn't do any of that. Instead, he became the only leader on the world stage in the middle of a global pandemic to pull his country out of the World Health Organization.
Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs.
That is going to come as a bit of a surprise to the folks at the WHO, who thought they had been given a month by President Trump 2 weeks ago to get back to him with proposals for reforming the organization. He evidently has decided that the clock has already run out on that month, and so he's taking his toys, folding his tent, walking away, and stripping the World Health Organization of hundreds of millions of dollars in funding that the president's critics will argue the WHO could use at a time when the world is gripped with a pandemic. There are also big questions here now about the impact of all of this on American public health institutions, including the US government's own Centers for Disease Control, which partners extensively with the World Health Organization and which presumably now has to terminate those arrangements. The president also announced some measures relating to China's new security law on Hong Kong, including an end to the exemption that Hong Kong enjoys from a whole range of tariffs, taxes, and agreements that govern the US relationship with China. China, he insisted, is stripping Hong Kong's independence, and now the country should be viewed as no longer, as they say, one country, two systems, China and Hong Kong, but as he put it, one country, one system.
We will take action to revoke Hong Kong's preferential treatment as a separate customs and travel territory from the rest of China. The United States will also take necessary steps to sanction PRC and Hong Kong officials directly or indirectly involved in eroding Hong Kong's autonomy and just, if you take a look, absolutely smothering Hong Kong's freedom.
He went so far as to suggest that the State Department will now issue a travel warning for Americans thinking of going to Hong Kong. Bear in mind, there are an enormous number of Americans living in Hong Kong. This is all a move by the Trump administration to undo the possibility of Hong Kong remaining a global financial hub as a result of the imposition of China's national security law. Going to raise huge questions about those 300,000 people with British national overseas passports in Hong Kong that Dominic Raab indicated just 24 hours ago may end up having a faster path to British citizenship than they've had in the past if they decide that as a result of all of this they want to leave Hong Kong. With that, the president swept out, and he didn't take any questions at all about the crisis in Minneapolis, his quite extraordinary tweets last night threatening that he was going to use the National Guard to shoot protesters, or, of course, the growing coronavirus death toll here, now nearly 102,000 people.
And Simon, I thought he might be tempted to say something about what's happened with George Floyd, who died, as you say, at the knee of the white police officer, not least because the former President Obama has made a pretty rare intervention in domestic politics to express his concern over what happened.
Yes, indeed. We've had statements from Barack Obama and also a personal appearance from Joe Biden, who gave a webcast a short while ago expressing his grave concern about what's been taking place in Minneapolis. President Obama said this shouldn't be normal in 2020 America. It can't be normal. If we want our children to grow up in a nation that lives up to its highest ideals, we can and must be better. Joe Biden disclosed that earlier in the day, he had a conference call with several members of George Floyd's family. That is more than we believe President Trump has done. Certainly last night, he was asked if he had spoken to the family, and he indicated that at that point he had not. We don't know if that's because the family doesn't want to speak to him or whether simply the call at that stage had not been arranged. We do know that shortly before the president came out, the Attorney General, William Barr, confirmed there's going to be a federal investigation of the killing of George Floyd. That suggests that at least police officer Derek Chauvin and possibly some of the others will face additional charges beyond the single third-degree murder charge that is now being brought against Officer Chauvin. But look, we're in an incredible position here. We're always in an incredible position here, but we're in an incredible position here, Andrew, when the President of the United States, any President of the United States, on a day like today, as we head towards nightfall here, with concerns about further demonstrations in Minneapolis, calls for demonstrations in other parts of the country this weekend, where he has nothing to say to try and pacify the situation. And you have to ask yourself, is it because he doesn't want to pacify the situation, or because of everything that he said on Twitter over the last few hours, he simply is not in a position to try and pacify the situation? Either way, it's a simply astonishing moment to witness that taking place at the White House.
All right, that's Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. Just to remind you, Trump put out that tweet saying when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That tweet was red flagged by Twitter, which means people can't retweet it, and that's the second time they did it in 4 days. Apparently they're going to test for accuracy all Trump's tweets. Going to have to employ a lot of people, aren't they? He's got 80 million followers on Twitter. He knows what he's doing, you know. That man knows what he's doing, and I still wouldn't rule out the idea that Donald Trump is the President of the United States after the election later this year. Do not write that man off. You're listening to me, Andrew Pierce. We'll carry on with a conversation about lockdown. I also want to talk to people about how they're being impacted economically by furloughing, and if you're self-employed, how you're impacted. Do call me, 0345 6060 973. Remember, after 9, we're talking about schools, because the government wants kids in primary schools, some years, to go back on Monday, June the 1st. You're sending yours back. I'm Andrew Pierce. The time is now 8:30. Headline, Zora Silverman.
Chancellor Rishi Sunak has confirmed the UK's coronavirus furlough scheme will finish at the end of October. At the Number 10 briefing, Mr Sunak also set out how employers will have to start sharing the cost of the scheme. A US police officer has been charged with the third-degree murder and manslaughter of George Floyd following widespread protests over his death. George Floyd died in Minneapolis after Officer Derek Chauvin was filmed kneeling on his neck for at least 8 minutes during his arrest for allegedly using a fake $20 note in a shop. Tonight, the National Guard will be deployed to the city after days of protests. And Donald Trump has tonight announced America is terminating its relationship with the World Health Organization. The president says it's failed to make the changes he wanted to see following the coronavirus outbreak, and that it's controlled by China. He also announced plans to punish the country over a number of issues. LBC weather, clear skies and another warm night tonight. A few mist patches, a low of 5 degrees.
This is LBC.
Hey, it's Dr. Hazel Wallace here. Check out my podcast, The Food Medic. You'll hear from leading experts sharing advice on how we can live healthier lives. Check out season 3, where I spoke about mental health with Fern Cotton. The Food Medic with me, Dr. Hazel Wallace. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.